The following video was produced by the Mem, Centre de Mémoire Montréalais, for its online encyclopedia, Mémoire de Montréal. Directed by Stéphanie Lessard-Bérubé in 2018, it is entitled, Portuguese Encounter, with José-Louis Jacome and Joaquina Pires. The video is part of the collection, Stories of Immigration. It also appears in the dossiers, From One Island to Another, Azorian Immigration, and Encontros, the Portuguese Community of Montreal. In a café, Joaquina Pires and José-Louis Jacome share a table near a window. A cup in hand, Joaquina wears a red shawl, glasses and traditional heart-shaped earrings. She talks with José-Louis, a man with short gray hair, dressed in a sweater and dark pants. Short video clips play during their conversation. First, in an old photo album, black and white pictures show a large family in the Azores. Then, in his office, José-Louis leafs through a preliminary version of his book, Dunil à l'autre, Fragment de Mémoire. Joaquina then walks down Avenue du Mau Royal, to the corner of Boulevard Saint-Laurent. Later, she walks over a blanket of snow through Parc du Portugal, near the Azores hardware store. Then, a Portuguese-language Canadian newspaper announces the launch of José-Louis' book. Finally, the author walks on Rue Saint-Dominique in Little Italy, passing the Saint-Jean de la Croix school. The video starts, and José-Louis speaks.
While doing research, I called an organization called Les Amis du Plateau.
Du Boulevard Saint-Laurent.
Right.
When I made an appointment with him at Paulo's Cafes, it triggered something in me. I said, well, that's good. It's a bit of a continuation of what I'm doing for the Portuguese community. So that's how it came to be.
She had asked me to show her what I was doing. And when I showed her, she said, well, José, it's not something you should keep for your family or for yourself. It's something that you should publish. Then I said, publish it? I've never done that. How can we do this?
The way I positioned myself in this story is as a guide, as someone who had the tools to make it possible for him to carry out his project. And I was very tough with him, with the things I told him, and very directive. I told him, if you want to carry out this project, you have to go in this direction. And, for that, I really put him in touch with the right people, the right institutions.
At the right time. The project, I repeat, is quite important, because of the 2 languages, and the exhibit in 3 languages.
It's really something you carry in your heart. And I always say to the people I meet who have ideas, of course we need the means to carry out certain projects. But if we care very, very, very strongly about a project, if things are very important to someone, we always find the means, because I think the heart can accomplish a lot of things. I told myself that his story was my story as well in a way, with a few differences, especially the story of the land where we had arrived. I immediately saw that the project could be beneficial. With regards to the history of the Portuguese community, it was the first time for me, to my knowledge, that someone who was completely outside the community came up with a story in French. By writing only in Portuguese, you don't reach a certain audience, which is important to reach, as it is the host society. Another aspect which is also important is that in the previous work that had been done, and of which I was aware, they very often studied people who came from Europe. So I thought it was also a way of giving a voice to people who are of Portuguese origin, but who come from the Azores, and all this, in the hopes of showing people that no group is homogeneous.
We are talking about the Portuguese from the plateau. There are many stories to tell about them. And then there are Portuguese people like me, who grew up outside the plateau. There are other stories. but all that makes up the history of the Portuguese, in Montreal.
But often people think that family history doesn't matter. I have always perceived that history is the story of people. It's an accumulation of stories that make up history with a capital H, in my opinion. Our family history gives us a more important anchor point. It's very subjective, but that's what I think.
At Paolo's cafes, by the window, Joaquina smiles while talking to José-Louis. Credits. Stories, José-Louis Jacome and Joaquina Pires. Video, Stéphanie Lessard-Bérubé. Thanks to Paolo's cafes. Audio description by Ella Cuscio.